Hey guys, just want to take a real quick minute to talk about an issue I've been having with my Jeep. We have a 2001 Wrangler, and about a year or so ago, the blower motor stopped working. And so I just started with the simplest, tested the motor, looked at the resistor, tested it, it looked good. So, and the fuse and the relay were both good. So that left the last thing to me that made sense to me was the blower motor fan speed selector switch. And I popped a new one in, picked up one from AutoZone, put it in, and it worked great for like a year. And then about 3 weeks ago, it went out again, or it stopped working again. Again, tested the motor, looked at the resistor, tested it, and it tested fine, but it was very rusty and corroded. So I did go ahead and replace it, and went ahead and replaced the fan speed selector switch. And worked good for a day or so, or three, and then it stopped working again. Long story short, replaced the motor, replaced the resistor, put a new relay in just in case that was the issue, tested the circuits, eliminated the ignition switch as being a possible problem. Circuit tested out good, ground tested out good, but I kept going through these switches. I went through 4 of them inside of 3 weeks time, and just was getting very frustrated. Initially I thought it was the switch because I picked these up at O'Reilly's standard ignition, I believe it's called, and even though they worked at first, I did notice there was some poor quality craftsmanship. The when you switch between the different fan speeds, there was a lot of slop. It didn't click solidly into position, and one of them it didn't even line up with the position marks on the dash bezel. So I was just assuming I was just getting some poor quality parts from O'Reilly's. Doesn't usually happen to me. I know a lot of people will hate on O'Reilly's or AutoZone or pick your favorite or most hated auto parts store, and everybody's going to have some stories to tell, but I don't usually have too much of a problem with my local O'Reilly's. And anyways, what it boiled down to, after the last switch, I replaced the last switch. When I took it out of the plug, I noticed, see if I can see it, right there. See how that's all nice and melted and crusty there? So that led me to start looking at some connection issues here. And also, when I was putting when I put the last switch in, and of course before I put it back in the dash, turn the key on, make sure it's working, and I just happened to bump it, and it was working when I first turned the key on and switched between the fan speeds, and but then when I was messing around there and bumped it, it stopped working. Key was still on, still had power to it, and started wiggling the connection, and it would come off and go and come up. I had an intermittent connection. Looked closely, saw that right there. Thought, okay, it's time. One of these switches has gone bad, and it has burned up, my switch here, melted my switch, or my connector. So I decided, let's get a new connector. Well, $40, $36 from the local parts house for one of these connectors, and I thought, let me see if I can do something with depinning this, and maybe see if I can fix the one that's in there. And at any rate, I stumbled across a forum, doing some searches on the various forums, and I stumbled across a forum where a guy had similar issues, and this is how he fixed it. And so this is not my idea, but it is how I chose to fix it, rather than buying the new connector switch and risk possibly having the problems before. I said, well, I'm gonna cut it off, and I'm going to use some female spade connectors to connect to the back of the switch in general. So what I want to show you real quick here, if I can do it, let me turn that back over. after I cut it off, look how loose some of these, let me get my pick tool in shot here. Look how loose, look at that. That one's not bad. That one, pretty loose as well. There it goes. So, well, I'm trying to do this through the camera lens. Let me just get my fat fingers in here. I was trying to avoid that. That one's very loose. That one's very loose. That one loose. And that was the one that was melty. No, this is the one that was melty. Ironically, it's not loose at all in there, but 3 of the 5 wires and connectors going in there are pretty loose. So I don't want to deal with that again. So this, after doing my research on the forums, this is what I come up with. Female spade connectors. They work great. Slip right on there. Heat shrink. They come with a heat shrink on them. And I've got a good solid connection there. Now, I like to be a little redundant when I am doing a fix. So what I didn't like, even though I seriously doubt it would ever be a problem, sorry, I'm trying to get in the shot here, is that there was some, you know, the metal there in close proximity to each other, exposed still. I didn't like that. So what I did was see if I can do this while holding the phone. I don't have my tripod available to me today. Set that in there for stability. Took some, just some heat shrink and shoved it. Man, my camera work is sucking today. Go ahead and talk to me about that let me set the phone down. Give me half a second. Got the phone set down. All right. Wow. Wow, wow, wow. Production quality is top notch today. All right, sorry about that. So I just shoved some heat shrink down there to make to the end of the spade connector on each one and just shrunk that down. And the finished product looked pretty good. I have no reason to think that those will bend and be a problem and touch each other, but I did as best I could. I could have slid that all the way down to completely conceal the metal connectors, but of course that would be a problem if I ever need to replace the switch again and have to remove that heat shrink. So I just went just enough to cover the metal that was exposed. There's no reason to believe that these spades on the switch itself are ever going to bend and touch each other. Have to be a pretty, I'm thinking, catastrophic event, and then I'm probably not worried about the switch anymore. Probably worried about the Jeep and maybe my life. I don't know. Anyways, again, this was not my idea, but it was a great fix. Heat shrink already had on hand, heat gun, even already had spade connectors on hand. So essentially a free fix, though at one point or another I paid for all of this. But you know, even if I'd had to go out and buy it all, still far cheaper than the $36 connector plug from O'Reilly's there. So if you're having problems getting your fan to stay running, check this switch or check this connector. Make sure that it's not the problem. This has been my problem all along. I would be willing to bet that the 4 different selector speed switches that I installed and then I went to O'Reilly's and complained about were probably not the issue. As a matter of fact, this switch here is the one that I bought at AutoZone a year or so ago. I'm gonna hang on to it and throw it in the glove box or in the shop somewhere in the tool drawer and just have it for in case this switch that's in there ever goes out. Then I'll have a backup there. I will say on the blower motor that I first got from O'Reilly's, it was a Murray product, but the fan wheel on it was so out of round that when I installed it in the blower motor housing, it was rubbing against the housing, and no matter how I adjusted it, I took it out 3 different times. trying to make it work, and it did. I finally just took it back. I put a micrometer on the wheel and it was way out of round. So I took it back, got a different fan and or blower motor, and stuck it in there, and the first time it did just fine there. So anyways, hope this helps somebody and saves somebody 3 weeks worth of frustration. I was about to lose my ever-loving mind trying to figure out what the issue was. And of course, it's right in the middle of hunting season, deer season, so I've got to have heat running back and forth to the cabin. And it actually cost me at least one day, maybe a day and a half of hunting time, because I drove back to the shop here trying to figure this problem out. So hopefully this saves you the hassle and gives you a possible idea for a future fix. Thanks a lot, guys. Let me know in the comments if you ever run into something like this, or maybe other possible issues that you've had that you found a DIY kind of fix to take care of. Thanks a lot, guys. See you.